Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/256, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 256th edition of the Pedalshift Project. My name is Tim Mooney. Thank you so much for joining. I know I've been taking a few weeks off from the intros here. Partially, of course, the news you may have heard, we lost Bellstar really suddenly, as I mentioned on the best of, and it's still a tough time around here. So I thank you for all the folks who have reached out in the interim. She will be very, very, very missed. I no longer have a companion that I can bring with me on bike tours, and that's just really a terrible feeling, I have to be honest. On this edition, let's see if we can pull out of the skid here. We are on day 5 of the Green Goblin retirement tour, and this was a real return to everything. I didn't ride a bus once the entire day on day 5, but, you know, while my amateurish chain twisting fix was holding admirably, was my luck going to hold on long enough to complete the tour, or even just day 5, all on that fix? Here we go.
Good morning. Day 5, I believe. It's Wednesday. Leaving Sunset Bay State Park. Not as bad as I complain about. It's not great. It's not great compared to other ones. But it's not as bad as every time I come in and complain about it. Granted, the hiker-biker is not perfectly flat, but it's flat enough. And it's fine. So, don't call Oregon. Don't. There's no need to. They're fine. It's good. It's a great park. Like, if that's all I had, if that's what I had, if I was comparing it to itself, that makes no sense. But anyways, point being, it's perfectly fine. Rounding the bend here, sorry for the wind, for this really spectacular view of the beach here. Was very cold this morning relative to the rest of the mornings, and it's still pretty chilly. I'm also pretty damp, not from rain, haven't had a drop of that, not from fog, but okay. I appreciate when cars are extra careful, but well, that was dangerous. They just decided to go right around me, and we nearly had a head-on. All right, let's move. Well, that just made me lose my track of thought. My train of thought, train of thought. I'm caffeinated, but not awake. So it was cold this morning. That's where I was. And the problem with the Oregon coast is nothing ever really dries overnight. I always love watching people string up their lines and leave stuff up. I'm like, oh, that's cute. If there's sun, sure, but particularly in the ironically named Sunset Bay, you're just not going to get it. I have an outside chance tonight in Humbug of drying some things out. In my experience, occasionally I'll get some decent sun. So we'll see how that goes. Climbing out of the beautiful beach area, fogged in, as you would expect. Much more fog this year, I think, than in past years. And fog that lingers, which is nice. So that's pretty cool. Seven Devils coming up ahead. And it's just one of my favorite non-beach portions of the trip. Pretty much the highlight, I'd say, of today. Today's kind of okay, better than yesterday, riding-wise, in terms of what you see and what you get to experience, especially with Seven Devils. But tomorrow, the final day, is the real gem. It's got amazing, amazing views, and it's reasonably easy riding. I'd say of the 2 days, this is the more challenging. And since tomorrow is easier, it allows for the extra mileage, which effectively puts me over 65, I think, if I do the border run. Again, not terrible. That's kind of in that 60 to 65 wheelhouse. That's good. But the mileage yesterday looks like it was about 61, which feels pretty good. And I think it's worth commenting on. Again, apologies for the wind. The one big question mark I had for myself, and I'm not sure if I voiced this in the prep episode or any of the few weeks of episodes ahead of this, is I've biked very little this year. Really vanishing. I mean, probably the least amount of biking that I've done, and that includes last year, in terms of biking through the spring, the late winter and into the spring to get prepped for a big summer tour. I did almost none. I did do, a short spring tour this year, and that was fine and dandy. But I really had a dearth of cycling, even just cycling around town. And that was because I was gone for 6 weeks. And sure, I had the Brompton, and sure, I used that a little bit. But you compare that to when I'm sitting in place and not moving around like I was then. It was a lot less cycling. So I was unsure how this was going to all go. I'm carrying probably an extra few pounds than I would normally at this time of year. As a result, I was really good going into. I was actually ahead of my normal weight schedule going into the big 6-week La Crosse trip. But turns out, when you sit on your butt and drive around a lot, and then you enjoy all the food and libations that the West Coast has to offer, and you're not moving like I am right now, turns out you gain about 4 or 5 pounds. Pro tip. So these were all concerns, but I think that maybe the ramp up of those few days going into the trip probably helped a lot. And good takeaway, I think. I'm sure I'll do a takeaways episode, but good takeaway for me, and I think I may even have had this as a takeaway before, but not just jumping into a 60-mile day from the jump is probably a good idea. And that's something that often will be when I do the C&O, I just do 60, 60, 60 basically. And if I don't have my bike legs under me, boy, it gets to me. So I think a short couple of days to start is probably a good way to go. The Seven Devils loom ahead of me here. Not bad. I think the way the book describes it makes it feel like, and also the topo map. The topo map makes it look really, not topo map, but the elevation profile map makes it look really daunting. And the reality is that once you get up the first very steep hill and you start with the Devils, once you summit Devil 1, Devils 2 through 7 are relatively easy. There's, obviously you have to do some spinning, but it's really not that bad. And get some really beautiful views, although today, who the heck knows, because of how foggy it is, maybe a very limited view kind of day. But then you get this fantastic downhill, basically not all the way to 101, but close to it. And then it's fairly flat, really minimal hills for most of the day, until you get towards Port Orford area, which is also beautiful. And that's kind of the beginning of the truly beautiful parts. I'd say Bandon is really gorgeous. Boulder Beach State Park, really gorgeous. I rarely stop there, but I may consider doing it today. And then, of course, right at the end today has just a sweeping panoramic view. Right after I get all my groceries in Port Orford. I'll shut up and let you hear the wind as I descend here. Passing by Bastendorf Beach Park, which is the earlier campground as you roll in. And as I mentioned last episode, by the end of the day, you're just sort of like, please let this be over with. For whatever reason, even though, I ride at the same speed as anything else, it just feels like it's twice as long. It's just kind of insane. I think that happens with me in almost every form of transportation. The last bit always feels like time extends. It's a pretty common psychological phenomenon, apparently. I don't know. I'm sure it's got a name. Let's see. I don't think I've got much more to share going into this. I do have I've saved a bit of food for this climb just to be on the safe side. I tend not to like to eat a big breakfast right out of camp, but I did eat some cheese and some, what did I have? Trail mix and a big coffee, and I cameled up a bit just to get prepared for this. I don't want to go in with nothing, but I have a fair amount of food just in case I want to eat on my way up, which, if memory serves, midway through the Devils, I'm usually hitting it pretty hard. So that'll be my later. That'll be kind of my snack. It's about 22 miles or so to Bandon. A chunk of it is downhill, but a lot of the effort happens, of course, here early on. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to do Sunset Bay. If I had hoteled it earlier, it would have been a lot longer this morning leading into it. And maybe that would have been a good warm-up, but I find these 2 miles, there's some teeny little climbs where you got to spin up. I find that to be plenty going into this. And then it's just sort of like you get started on it and you're up and over, and by late morning you're in Bandon, and it just sort of all works out. I left about 8:30 or so this morning, which feels, I get the sense that that's later than I normally leave, but only because I think in times past I've still felt that the Seven Devils were a bit of you gotta do it early. It's like, well, there's just not a lot of traffic, so it's actually one of the really great non-trafficked areas that you ride here on the coast. So it's actually kind of good to enjoy it at whatever speed or at whatever time you want. But I do feel like I'm really nicely rested. Slept really, really good and hard last night, which was nice. Oh, one thing worth mentioning before I let you all go for the morning here. I have a relatively new sleeping pad, and I've been enjoying it on this trip. And then I realized that I've only been half inflating it this whole time. And so I inflated it on the underside as well. It does a top and a bottom inflation side. And last night it was too inflated. It was like I was rolling off of it because I had inflated it pretty hard. And it's really fantastic. I think it inflates up to about 3 inches. And I think in colder weather, where the ground is cold, that'll be very helpful. But last night it was like, oh, let me take a little air out, because I'd been used to it only being half inflated. And then I fell promptly asleep until the sun came up and the crows came out, or ravens, I guess. So that was kind of a fun discovery, I guess. But I'll leave that with you. Next chat we'll have is probably either middle of or end of the Seven Devils, depending on how it all goes. It is a glorious, glorious part of the Oregon coast, so I am really looking forward to tackling this right now. At the corner of Seven Devils Road and Whiskey Run Lane, this is the summit of the final devil, the seventh devil. And I'm going to be making a right here onto Whiskey Run Lane and doing as the book calls it, an exhilarating descent down the mountain ridge here. Beautiful day, nice and sunny. I ended up stripping off my outer layer, the rain jacket, after about like a minute and a half. And I've been just rocking one long sleeve wool layer, which feels a little moist at the moment, given all the sweating I've done. Grateful that I had all the food that I had, because I've eaten a fair chunk of it, not all of it. Gone through, 2/3 of a water bottle, so right on schedule. Traffic is heavier than normal, and by heavy it means there's probably been a couple dozen cars, give or take. Many of which have passed me at a safe distance. Many of them. Nothing too crazy, but it's just, there's no shoulder. So, and if they're passing you on an uphill with a blind curve, they're not going to jump too far out. God forbid they wait, but that's all right. We're sharing the road. Let's see here. Trying to think what is going on for the rest of the day here. I do have the exhilarating descent. I've got Bandon, where I'll probably pick up lunch and maybe a kind of second breakfast action. I typically will stop at the Subway. It's one of the first spots in Bandon, and then regret it because I'll eat something and then go, oh, I could have gotten something better. But I do think the Subway sub will often stand up to the handlebar bag situation. So I may get one for munching through the day, and then go further into town and look for something a little more interesting to eat. There's kind of a downtown-y area that is kind of nice. There's some cool stuff there, so I may take a break there. Not in a huge rush today. 57 miles total. By the time I get to Bandon, I'll have done a full third of it. So, there's plenty of day left. And relatively quick riding in a good chunk of it, especially the next 20 or so miles after Bandon. It's a pretty chill ride. So a good day. This is like I said, a bit of a spacer day. Now that I've gotten the devils knocked out, the real views happen right around Bandon, and then again at the end of the day near Port Orford, right before camp. So a lot of miles to bang out. The devils, how do I describe them? One thing that was very sad is all of the spray paint messages on the devils has largely washed off. I saw one very dim one at one point, but for the most part, those are all gone. So through the years, I know I've documented a few of them via photograph and here on the podcast, but sadly, they are no more. So if some enterprising soul were to ever to figure out which devil was which and mark those in the pavement, it was always one of my favorite things about the devil. So it's a little diminished in my opinion as a result that they're not there anymore. Did it kick my butt a little bit more than normal? I don't know. I feel pretty good right now, but there were definitely some spots where I feel like I stopped a fair amount, but it was mostly just a kind of a brief bite of a a sandwich and a drink of water. So I don't know if I stopped any more than I normally did. I have no sense if I did it any faster or slower. I know that I look back, you forget the rough parts sometimes of a ride. You just remember, oh, I killed it. I went right through it. I don't think I ever really went right through the Devils, because it is a fair amount of energy that you have to expend here. But not for the next few miles, because I'm going to be going straight downhill. So as I dry out a little bit more, maybe have another grab of water, and then, quote, the exhilarating descent down to Bandon. More to come. From Bandon, Oregon, outside the same subway I always go to, because you know what? Sometimes you want a Subway sandwich. So I got a foot long, pardon my cough. Oh, one of the things that I definitely get, I don't know if you all get this, but when I bike and I don't hydrate enough, there's a condition that you get where your breathing creates, what's the word I want to say? It irritates your windpipe, basically. And so if you ever get a cough after you're riding, generally speaking, and I'm not a doctor, but that may be what's causing it. So it's also a good sign that you should be hydrating more, and I should have been hydrating more. So as a result, I picked up some extra water, some sports drink for the first time, and I will definitely be focusing on that over the next 30 miles or so. A little bit less, actually. About 28 miles between Bandon and Port Orford, and then about 7 miles or so from Port Orford to Camp for the night. So I'm going to take for me, an extended break. For most people, a normal break. I am very strange. I don't take very long breaks, and I probably should. I probably would feel better if I did. But I do tend to find, especially if I sit too long, I settle, and it's really hard for me to get going again after. So that's why I tend to not do that. But I'm going to enjoy the rest of my beverage here, and then continue into Bandon, and then maybe stop for a little bit and check out some of the things in the town here, and then continue on my way, relatively fast miles ahead, if memory serves. But I think there is a little bit of up and down according to the elevation profile map, but nothing really big. But it might be that those kinds of annoying hills where it's just sort of like they're not very noticeable on the elevation maps, but they're kind of on the steeper side. So I just can't remember off the top of my head. I just remember today ends up being a little bit more of a day than you think it's going to be. Given the mileage, once you bang out the first 20, you're like, nothing's that bad from here on out. And I seem to recall that it's kind of those annoying miles more than anything else. Unfortunately, we're inland for quite a bit here, basically almost all the way to Port Orford, and then just spectacular. I'm really looking forward to that view, and it's a big climb, if memory serves, out of Port Orford. But then you have this big downhill sweep until you come to the campsite for the day, and really looking forward to that. Hope I can get some nice views. I always do, so should be good. And made the mistake of buying some gluten-free treats. Didn't mean to do that. I'll wait till I'm really hungry. Big mistake. From Port Orford, Oregon, and the beautiful vista here in town. I have purchased all of my groceries for the night. There's a part of me that's sort of like, should I have eaten a dinner, or like an early dinner here? But it's just a touch early. It's, what time is it? It's just 4 o'clock right now, and I'm just not feeling like a big meal right now, although the clock is ticking on the ice cream that will rapidly melt, keeping my beer cold. So we'll see how that all goes. Last time I was here, it was all socked in foggy, and now it's like really chill and sunny, really sunny day. And beautiful views here of the beach here. It's just simply magnificent. Beautiful stacked rocks. You can see well down the coast, probably all the way to where Brookings is I'm thinking, just based on what I'm seeing. So quite a bit down the coast. Really fantastic day. Little sunny for my taste, as you all know. Love the sun, but just not shining on me all day long. But it's fine. I've had the sunscreen, so that's been helpful. Probably grab a picture here and roll into camp, so you'll probably hear from me at least one more time before the end of it. I did see, as I exited the shop, the Ray's Market, a guy that I saw in camp in Newport who left crack of dawn after my first night, who I've now managed to pass, and now he's passed me because he's probably on his way to camp right now, a guy from South Korea. So he'll probably be in camp tonight. So yeah, handful of people out, but they're out. So that's about it. Check in with you at camp. From Humbug Mountain State Park, it's the end of day 5. I think I have these days right. I always forget what days it is. I mean, I know it's Wednesday. But yeah. So anyways, yeah, Humbug Mountain. Beautiful park, beautiful approach. Really enjoy the vibe here. The downside is you have limited connectivity, which is a plus for some people. I tend to like to have at least a couple of bars worth to download some podcasts, connect with back home. I did have enough of a signal early in the evening, or late in the afternoon, really, more to the point, to be able to do a multiple dropped phone call with back east. So, oh, cool, there's a snake. Why does it always have to be snakes? Ooh, wow. I'm scaring the heck out of it. It's about 18 inches long. Definitely some kind of a garter snake. Nothing real fancy, but that's a nice little bit of wildlife. Kind of a reddish brown. I'm sure it's a garter snake. It was not thrilled with my presence here. In any event, Humbug I kind of like. It's a kind of a weird setup for a hiker-biker, but the one thing that I'll say about it is that it is it's unique in the sense that you get your own spot that is cordoned off, and it goes up a hill into the woods, and so it does offer you a little bit of extra privacy, which can be kind of nice. It can still also be social at the same time if you're riding with a bunch of people. But as we have discovered, and I say we, and I'll get to that in a moment, there are very few people who are riding right now. And it doesn't seem to be that a lot of people are following the book. In fact, nobody seems to be following the book, as evidenced by last night, having it all to myself. I did run into, as I mentioned, the South Korean guy. And we connected a little bit more in camp tonight, and he didn't have much of a plan, so I kind of said, hey, you don't have to do it this way, but here's how I would go to San Francisco, as he is planning to do, and here are the campsites that I would recommend, because he had no idea beyond really here, so I think that was somewhat helpful. He will be in camp at in Brookings tomorrow at Harris Beach, and then beyond that, he's got a few ideas in mind, and then I kind of gave him some more potential ideas as well. You know, the classics: Elk Prairie, Burlington. You know, all of the greatest hits, basically. But I do like this campsite. It also, you do get a little bit of extra sun sometimes, and if you've had a lot of gray and fog, it can be kind of nice. Now in the morning, I suspect it's going to be cool and foggy because I think we'll get that marine layer coming in. We're not terribly far from the beach, but we are kind of around a bend and inland a little bit. And as you would expect a park called Humbug Mountain, there's a big mountain. There's supposed to be a great hike up to the top of it, but after rocking 60 miles in a day, or 57, I think it ended up being, I'm very rarely excited about doing a big hike. More power to the folks who can pull that off, but yeah, not my speed at the end of the day. I'm much more happy drinking a couple of beers and enjoying a nice dinner, and then kind of relaxing into an evening. I think I'll be in bed early again tonight just because yeah, it just feels good to get a good early night's sleep and then wake up, because you wake up with the sun no matter what. And if it's this deep into the summer, sun's coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. So, if you're not going to bed at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, then you're going to have a kind of a rude awakening no matter what. Riding has been fantastic. The fix that I did on that chain is not only just holding, but it's shifting effortlessly. It's really making me reconsider the concept of retiring this bike. It tours so well, which is no ding on the other Safari that I have, or the Brompton for that matter. I mean, all of them can shift really well if they're in reasonably good shape. But the degree to which that I went from, my God, this bike is toast and I need a repair, or I don't think I can go any further, to a simple twist of that chain link back into straightness, to where I'm at right now, just says a lot about how minor, small things can really throw off a bike transmission. And I didn't mention this before, but I'll mention it again. This is starting to make me into more of a chain guy. This morning I lubed and cleaned the chain, which, after a day of good riding, I would rarely do. I would just be like, oh, it was good yesterday, it'll be good today. But, I've been taking much better care of it as we've been going, and rewarded for it. So I expect the same tomorrow. I will give it probably just a gentle kind of extra layer of lube. I'll probably take a look and see if it needs it. But I expect that I'll give it at least a once over, and maybe lube it up one more time and then clean it off. 50, let me think here. I think that, as I mentioned, it's a little over 60 miles round trip if I end up doing the California run. I'm going to allow myself the ability to say no to the border run if I'm just not feeling it tomorrow. I don't think that this trip requires the border run for it to be a complete trip. I think that it will be perfectly fine. I think that it will be perfectly enjoyable if I end up in Brookings and grab a beer at the brewery there and have a nice dinner and turn around and go back to camp, and that's my day. But if I'm feeling it, it is always fun to kind of have that little bit of a completist thing. But generally, let's not forget, I didn't start at the Columbia River. I was not starting up in Astoria, so it's not like I did the entire Oregon coast anyways. And oh, by the way, we all know that I ended up fast forwarding essentially to Florence for the more contiguous riding here. I certainly tried, and I certainly rode from, what was it? Tillamook to Pacific City, to Nesquin. Let's not forget the ride to Nesquin, and actually a little bit past there before I very smartly realized that chain was not going to make it the way it was. So lots of things to reflect upon this ride when all is said and done, but it's ending the way that I was kind of hoping for it to end, and the fact that the bike has been behaving so well is really, really good. Like I said, early to bed tonight, I think. Perhaps early to rise. The ride, there's a reasonably decent climb, beautiful views up top, and then a nice big downhill to Gold Beach. Gold Beach, it's worth getting there a little bit on the early side because there's a bookstore there that I like to go to that's also a coffee shop. And if I catch it right, I can get some pretty kick-ass cinnamon buns there, and that is worth it. So it's also a good first break. And so that's the plan. So excellent day. Looking forward to a great final full day of riding tomorrow.
And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like this fall's upcoming bike tour. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittis, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Hankel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Avilas Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Bigel, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Krotke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Izuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponseller, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, and thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.